some of the elections we've had in recent years have only been voted in by less than half of the constituency. So can someone ever really be representative if they've only been given a mandate to actually lead us by a tiny proportion of people? Like, is that really democracy?
I mean, the important thing is, though, that everybody can vote if they want to. Don't you think it's the fault of people who don't go and vote that their vote isn't counted?
Democracy can be very dangerous because it means that a small population or a small group of people that vote in, for example, the BNP, will put them in a position of power, and they'll be able to pass laws or do things that are dangerous.
Sometimes the people, as such, the majority of the people in the country call for things which I would consider to be totally immoral. For example, if you ask people now, if you said, right, we're going to have a referendum, and if you all vote yes, we'll bring the death penalty back, people in Britain, there's been surveys, would vote for that to happen. So why do we hold up democracy as if it's the only way we should be doing things? It's like, I don't think giving people a voice is always a good idea, because some people don't deserve it.
But we always go on about empowerment, and empowerment is part of participation. So if we wasn't even, given a chance to give our opinions, then change wouldn't happen.
Coming from South Africa, and we've only been in a democratic society for 16 years now, whenever it's voting time, people really have to PR voting, and it shouldn't be something that has to be done in a place, especially with a history like South Africa. And if you compare that to maybe Britain, where it's had democracy for so much longer, people start becoming apathetic, and then I think in a sense participation and change just won't happen.
Then you had things like the Iraq War, where you got 2 million people out in the streets of London. That's quite a strong voice saying, we don't want you to go to war, and they still did. So I can quite understand it if people, even if they are engaged, and even if they do care, actually say, this type of democracy we have, it doesn't work, because people aren't doing what we ask them to do.
Leading on from that question, do you think democracy can solve problems in developing world issues? Do you think it's a solution to things like poverty or climate change or gender inequality?
Giving a voice to all people, in theory, would make sure that resources are kind of more equally distributed.
A lot of people around the world, even though they're being affected by climate change, they haven't got the education or the understanding to know why. So if you had a vote, or if it was a referendum, say, about what action you should take, they wouldn't necessarily vote to do something about climate change.
But surely everyone should be given a voice. Everyone should be entitled to say their own viewpoint.
It was a democracy that voted in the Nazi Party. So it's not that it was and therefore they got rid of democracy and made it a one-party state, etc. But actually, they got to power because they lived in a democratic regime.
You can make a country democratic, but take Italy, it's democratic, but there's still massive amount of corruption.
Also, just because you haven't got democracy doesn't mean that you don't have all the good stuff. Because like Cuba, it has had a one-party state for a very long time. But if you look at their healthcare systems, although they can't make a choice to have a different leader, actually they've got fantastic healthcare systems, and the nutrition of the population is amazing. So actually, I don't think they're always connected. It's a great thing to esteem and to appreciate democracy, but just giving it in and of itself, I don't think changes that much.
Do you think God is democratic?
Christianity is actually probably incredibly democratic, because democracy is about listening to your voice as an individual, and therefore so is Christianity.
The fact that Britain is a Christian state doesn't kind of dictate how people vote or the people that are allowed to stand for election. But I think it's really important to have that moral compass there, just kind of as a kind of guiding hand, to make sure that the right decision is always made.
Surely it's better to have a state with no religion, so if you can't represent everyone equally, then to be more democratic you should have no state religion.
And also you're implying that if people are secular and don't have a belief, then they haven't got morals. I think that's quite controversial. If people feel like they haven't got a voice, if people feel there is no democracy, if they're just under one leader, then inevitably they're gonna feel like the only way they can express themselves, the only way they can actually change anything, is to become violent. So actually, I think it can make a big difference just in terms of people feeling like they can have a say in who rules them and how the country is run.
You could end up with equally sized groups expressing very, very opposite views, and then sort of one group getting into power through a small majority, and then obviously there being huge dissatisfaction amongst the other group, and then the possibility of violence as there is in Sudan at the moment.
The alternative is having some kind of autocracy or some kind of dictatorship where no one has a voice, And I think everyone there in that situation is going to feel disempowered and is going to be more likely to like form guerrilla groups and to become vigilantes and terrorists.